Yo, snackers, what's up? Pretzels here. Gonna be major Last Jedi spoilers in this one. It's January 26, 2018, not that it matters this episode, but this is Pretzels Prince Repeat. There are certain limitations with the PPR medium as I've set it up that I have to figure out how to work with. I think I've found a few fixes. What I mean by that is I have to work with how I've arbitrarily decided to do this. The structure developing because the first episode was of things upcoming. This was going to happen tomorrow. This was going to happen next week. That worked for that episode. Once every 9 days, established after the second episode. That's spaced out just far enough that I can't talk about anything too tied down to the date, and I have to focus on broader issues, trends in the news. I have to work with that. 10 to 11 minutes per episode. That means that there's only enough time to talk about one or two things in depth. These are my limitations, and limitations inspire creativity. There are strengths and weaknesses, things that are in the news currently. That's kind of hard to cover. Things that have been announced as being going to happen, like with that first episode, that's easy and perfect for the medium. Anticipate, research the topic I'm planning, write about it, wrap it up in a bow. And I get to talk about hype, things I find genuinely interesting. OWL last week was perfect, and now this week, well, there's Oscar stuff, Nintendo Labo stuff. Labo? That can all wait. It'll still be there 9 days from now. This week, I think I'll take to finally get around to what I've been meaning to get to since, last year, actually, though only a few weeks ago as well. That's right, The Last Jedi. Critics love it. Fans are divided by it. Cut in half right down the middle, like Supreme Leader Snoke. Bada bang. That's spoiler number one. Some fans love it, others hate it. Probably 95 to 5 in favor of, actually, as estimated by director Rian Johnson. But the 5% are very vocal about it, enough to make Johnson question himself, be stuck in a very dark place for a little bit. If so many are in favor of, what's up with this controversy? How can something like this happen? Okay, I think Danny Salem of ScreenRant.com hit the nail on the head, summed up the controversy perfectly in the title of his article. Last Jedi is a good Star Wars movie, but a bad Force Awakens sequel. A lot of people specifically say that The Last Jedi undoes a lot of the foreshadowing that The Force Awakens puts in, or else halts storylines that seem like they were going somewhere. Of The Last Jedi, Danny Salemme, it's like S-A-L-E-M-M-E, Salam, I guess that's French, writes, despite their back-to-back placement in the franchise, The Force Awakens is the only film it pretty much ignores. As an example, he goes on to describe characters who we don't see much payoff of in this film. Maz Kanata and the Knights of Ren, they may return in Episode 9, but what about poor bifurcated Snoke? In this case, I think the defeat of Snoke 1 episode sooner than expected, and Ren's advancement to Supreme Leader himself is actually pretty awesome. Moving up gives Kylo Ren a bigger, richer character arc. It's so much more interesting than what we thought he was going to get. His character actually is evolving and stuff, I think, and that's what Kylo Ren's arc is all about. What a Snoke even is, where he comes from, there will be answers, I'm confident of it. J.J. Abrams, he only directed the first episode of Lost. Bada bing, bada bing. Either that or it won't matter ultimately, like Rey's parentage, which was also wrapped up in an episode earlier than we expected. Maybe. Regarding Rey's parents, I don't mind that they were nobodies. The last film didn't say that they would be anybody anyway, but what actually got me about that was The Force Awakens made it seem that Rey did know who her parents were. I mean, she was just sitting around waiting for them. I guess the flashback where she touches the lightsaber, that memory she didn't have before, maybe? So she remembers her parents leaving now. But she still doesn't know who her parents were until the stuff with Kylo Ren. Though she was waiting for them to come back, her inability to remember them, who they even were, and why she would be waiting, that drives a lot of her character in The Last Jedi, her trying to answer that mystery for herself. Poe gets a character arc, which a lot of people interpret politically, but no real controversy there, actually. Finn gets a character arc, which turns out to be undone in the end, the whole thing seeming ultimately pointless. But that doesn't mean it didn't happen, causing him to grow as a character. I'll explain more on my blog. There's not enough room to get into my personal thoughts on each arc. What I do need to talk about is the controversy surrounding. So Finn in this film, useless? Maybe. If it were a standalone film, his character would probably get axed and not in the way he literally almost does. Or at least his part made smaller. Maybe we wouldn't follow him down to Canto Bight, just have Poe have a contingency as part of the plot. But he is a major character, and we do need to follow him. Johnson had to work with constraints, needing to continue these character stories. And, like I said, limitations inspire creativity. It just added room for more twists and stuff. After all that setup, who would have seen it coming? All coming out in vain in the end. So I think that's a good thing. But the last chunk of controversy I want to touch on, there's a lot of controversy over the seemingly out-of-nowhere Force powers in this movie as well. Episode 8 reveals a lot about the Force that we didn't know before, like Force projections. Hey, astral projections, those are a thing here. Luke projects himself across the galaxy. Snoke projects Kylo and Rey together. And it's more than just mental. Kylo is really wet after the rain. Rey is really wet after her vision of the pit at the base of the Jedi Temple. Also, the fact that Leia can Superman through space, that's a Force thing now too. Rian Johnson's tweeted gloriously in defense of these weird seeming out-of-nowhere abilities, but I don't think that he needs to. Introducing new details about the Force, new Force powers or Jedi tidbits seems to be a thing they do every movie. It's been there since day one. In A New Hope, the first one, Episode 4, everything gets introduced for the first time, of course, and it just seems like the Force is just for manipulating people's minds, Jedi mind tricks. Even Darth Vader's Force choke could just be him psychically manipulating the dude into feeling like he's being choked. It isn't up until Episode 5 where Luke moves the lightsaber with his mind and you realize that the Force can also lift rocks and stuff. In Episode 6, Force lightning is introduced. Episode 7, it was really cool, that scene in the beginning where it's revealed that the Force can hold a freaking laser bolt in the middle of the air. We didn't know the Force could do that. Even in the prequel trilogy, more concerned with setting up what we already know what will happen, there's at least one new thing introduced in each movie, no matter how small that thing may be. Episode 1 has midi-chlorians. It introduces midi-chlorians. I'll get to that later. Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, Mace Windu has a purple lightsaber. We never saw one of those before. Yoda's got mad hops, probably Force-powered. Episode 3, Palpatine throws Mace Windu out of the skyscraper using Force lightning. I don't think we knew that Force lightning could do that. It just seemed like it could just electrocute people. Maybe that's a stretch. Maybe he was using both Force lightning and Force powers at the same time. Either way, for sure, we didn't know that Plagueis
could use the Force to influence the midi-chlorians to create life. He had such a knowledge of the dark side. He could even keep the ones he cared about from dying.
Another thing about the Force that we learn in Episode 8 is how surprisingly compatible it is with Christianity. We all remember Han saying,
"I'll see you in hell,"
in Episode 5, but that could be any underworld in any religion. Come to Last Jedi, though, we've got a couple of pretty darn religiously specific Christian-esque lines. Godspeed, rebel. Godspeed, rebels. Save my soul.
Let's just pray that big-ass door holds out long enough.
Well done, my good and faithful apprentice.
He could save others from death, but not himself.
I think that Jediism is totally compatible with Christianity, the way that Lord of the Rings is. I mean, it's all made up, of course, but it's specifically written to be compatible. Only they have Jedi in that galaxy far, far away, but not in this galaxy. What's up with that? I think the answer is the midi-chlorians. That's just a headcanon of mine. Midi-chlorians. Anyway, it's pretty clear where I side regarding the controversies. Actually, on the side of the I hate everything guy. He's got a pretty good video about how he doesn't hate how he doesn't hate The Last Jedi. I'm left definitely excited for Episode 9, which is actually more than I could say for Episodes 7 and 8. I wasn't really looking forward to those, but how Abrams resolves these plots dangling, that's something to look forward to. General consensus, though, with the storyline wrapping up and the ending seeming so definitive, is that the next one isn't as anticipated as these last two were, which is just weird to me. Either way, with The Last Jedi, not only do we have to deal with the fact that reality frequently is not going to go the way you think. To me, The Last Jedi being released after Rogue One like it was, it represents an even more sobering reality. That Star Wars movies are no longer special. And that's the episode.
This is not going to go the way that you think!